Alright, well, it's been a while since my last Godzilla vlog, so I figured it's about time I gave you another one. I actually wanted to time this one for when Godzilla vs. Kong came out, but who the hell knows when that's going to be, so I'll just do it now. But I just saw, actually I didn't, I saw it a while ago, but I just re-saw Godzilla King of the Monsters, not the American version of the first movie, but the 2019 movie. Really wish they would have given it a different title to differentiate it from that one, but oh well, I guess it's better than making a Halloween sequel and just calling it Halloween. So as a lot of you probably know, I actually really liked the 2014 Godzilla movie. I thought it was a much better representation of Godzilla's size and power and how awe-inspiring he's supposed to be than the 1998 American Godzilla movie. But a lot of people thought that it didn't have enough Godzilla and it didn't have enough monster action in it. Well, those people should like this movie a whole lot better because there is a lot more Godzilla and there is a hell of a lot more monster action in this one. So in addition to Godzilla, this one adds Mothra, Rodan, and Ghidorah, or Ghidorah, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And when they first announced them, I was really afraid that they were going to go too over the top with the designs, like they were going to give Ghidorah 10 heads or something like that. I'm very happy to say that even though they're kind of stylized, all the monsters look basically the same as their classic iterations. Ghidorah still looks like Ghidorah, there's some small things like his wings are a little bit bigger, but other than that, he's completely recognizable as Ghidorah. One new addition they make is they do give him the Hydra-like ability to regrow his heads, but unlike the Hydra, he just regrows his one head. He doesn't grow two whenever one gets cut off. I also really like the design they used for Rodan. It was closer to how he looked in the original movie instead of the sort of more happy, kid-friendly version they used later. So all the monsters look really good. There's no questionable decisions like making Godzilla an anorexic iguana like in the 1998 movie. So I'm very, very happy about that. Also, like I said, there's a lot more action and there's a lot more Godzilla in this movie. Godzilla gets a fight with Ghidorah at about the 40-minute mark, and there are several fights both between Godzilla and Ghidorah and the other monsters, and the monsters with the military at several points during the movie. I was a little surprised when they announced that Mothra, Rodan, and Ghidorah were all going to be in the movie, because to me, Ghidorah seems like a monster that you'd save for like the last movie or the third in a trilogy or something like that. It kind of seemed like they were blowing their wad a little too early with all the monsters. I'm not really sure where they're going to go after this. Maybe Mechagodzilla or something like that. Also, the box office for this wasn't very high, so maybe they were thinking that Godzilla vs. Kong could potentially be the last one. They wouldn't get another movie and they just wanted to cram in as many popular monsters as they could. But I am very glad that all three of them were done well. They look good. They all get a moment to shine. Rodan gets a sequence where he takes on a bunch of jets and really fucks them up. Mothra's kind of sidelined for most of the movie. She hatches right at the beginning and then spends a lot of the movie just in her cocoon. But when she comes out for the final battle, she gets some good moments. In addition to the main four monsters, they also have several original monsters that show up. They only get a small amount of screen time, but it's different from something like Destroy All Monsters or Final Wars, where they're previously established monsters and then they just get these little cameos. Really, they're just there to show that there's lots of different monsters fucking up the earth, so I didn't mind that they didn't get a ton of screen time. You've got a tusked woolly mammoth looking one and this Kamacuras looking big spider creature. I don't know if they're planning on using these in some future movies or not. I actually wouldn't mind if they make a sequel to this, if they just keep showing some brief original monsters just to show you that there's so many different Titans and they come in all these different varieties. Now, the big complaint that a lot of mainstream critics seem to have is that they don't think the human characters are very good and they think the plot is kind of dumb. Look, the human characters, they're not these amazingly memorable, in-depth characters, but they're fine. Like, no one is as good as Bryan Cranston was in the first one, but the main characters, Kyle Chandler and Vera Farmiga, I'd say that they're more interesting than Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen were in the first movie. Speaking of which, most of the characters from the first one don't come back. The only ones who do are Ken Watanabe as Dr. Serizawa and some of the other scientist characters, who actually, some of them don't make it very far, spoiler alert, but Ken Watanabe's in it for a good part of the movie, which is nice. So basically, the story is Kyle Chandler and Vera Farmiga's son was killed during Godzilla's battle in San Francisco during the first movie. And since then, Kyle's had a hatred for Godzilla and just the Titans in general. He thinks they should all be wiped out. And him and his wife have developed a device called the Orca, which is capable of communicating with and in some cases even sort of influencing the behavior of the Titans. This device gets stolen by a bunch of eco-terrorists led by Charles Dance, and later we learn that Vera Farmiga is actually working with them because she thinks that mankind is destroying the Earth through pollution and war and, stuff like that. It's pretty standard, man is a virus upon the planet stuff, which again, a lot of critics felt that this plotline was weak. I actually didn't mind it. It's not breaking the mold. It's nothing really groundbreaking, but it doesn't need to be groundbreaking for a Godzilla movie. Now, one question that I'm sure a lot of people who haven't seen this movie yet have is whether or not Millie Bobby Brown's character counts as a Kenny, or Kendra, I guess in this case. I'm gonna say no. Sure, she does cry and scream quite a bit in the movie, but she's got a good reason for it, mainly the fact that giant monsters are destroying a city around her. She's not crying because Godzilla won't be your friend or some stupid shit like that. And unlike the Kennys in a Gamera movie, she doesn't just, magically know everything about the monsters and the military won't listen to her, and then in the final battle she just yells out Godzilla's name a bunch from the sidelines. She actually takes some initiative and does something that actually helps save the world at the end, which is more than most of the Kennys do. So I was completely fine with her. A few people didn't like her, but again, maybe I'm jaded because I've watched so many Gamera movies, but as far as kids in a kaiju flick go, she's fine. One criticism I have of the human plotline is Charles Dance plays the villain, and Charles Dance is great in the role. I mean, that guy was practically born to just dryly deliver ominous lines. He'll say stuff like, "I thought you were on board with our plan." So he's really good. The problem is he's really not in it a whole lot. Now, he doesn't die, so I'm assuming they're going to use him in a sequel, but I would really have liked to have seen more of him. And he's, until like an end credit scene, there's a part where he just kind of leaves the movie for the entire finale, which I was a little disappointed with. So I'm really hoping if this series makes it to a third Godzilla movie, he'll show back up again. Or maybe he'll show up in Godzilla vs. Kong, I don't know. As I said, there is a lot more monster action in this one. Godzilla and Ghidorah, as well as the other monsters, get several fights here, including the big climactic one at the end. And unlike the first movie, it doesn't, it doesn't have them start fighting and then cut away to something else immediately. It shows the whole fight. So people who wanted some big budget kaiju action really get their money's worth in this movie. One thing I kind of missed from the first one is that the first one was really good at having sort of quieter moments where there's no destruction, but they just have these moments where it really shows the size and power of these creatures. Like a good example of that is when Aaron Taylor Johnson's on the bridge and then the Muto just walks right by him. I kind of wish this movie had a little more moments like that. Also, because there's more monsters and more action, that means there's a lot more CGI, so the effects have a bit more of a sort of video gamey look to them this time as opposed to the first one. The effects are still good, but when you have this many, even in a movie that cost 150 million or 200 million or whatever, when you have that much CGI, you are going to lose a bit of realism. But the fight scenes themselves are actually very well done. There's also a lot more fan service this time around, like when they first show Ghidorah, they refer to him as Monster Zero, which is a nice reference to Godzilla vs. Monster Zero or Invasion of Astro Monster. They also at different points have both the original Godzilla theme and the Mothra theme. Zhang Ziyi, hopefully I'm saying that right, she plays a pair of twin scientists who you actually at first don't know are twins, but it's revealed that she comes from a long line of twins who have been fascinated with Mothra, which is a nice little touch. So there's a lot of references to the old movies, but thankfully none of them feel forced. Like calling Ghidorah Monster Zero is not only a good reference to one of the older movies, but it's also a good way to show that Ghidorah is like an alpha predator or an alpha monster who's just as powerful as Godzilla. They also made Ghidorah an alien too, which I was kind of surprised by. I actually wouldn't have minded if they had said that he was a Titan just like Godzilla and all the other monsters. As long as they didn't reveal he was originally 3 cute little plush toys, I would have been fine with that. But saying he was from space was a nice homage to the original films. Another plot element that I noticed a lot of mainstream critics seem to have a problem with is there's a part where they expand upon the hollow earth theory that they kind of touched on in Kong Skull Island, but it's revealed that there's a series of tunnels that go through the earth, and that's how Godzilla's able to go from place to place and they're not able to track him. But the characters go through one of the tunnels in a submarine and they find this ancient undersea kingdom where they don't say it's Atlantis, but it's basically supposed to be an Atlantis-type civilization. Some critics thought this was kind of dumb and unnecessary. Again, this is actually close to something you would see in an old school Godzilla movie. The only difference is in an old school Godzilla movie, the civilization would still be there and they'd be the ones controlling the monsters. Like you put that in and you basically got the plot to a 70s Godzilla movie. So yeah, like I said, the plot really isn't anything too special, but again, for this kind of movie, it doesn't need to be. It does deliver on the big kaiju fights. In fact, as far as big budget CGI filled American movies go, I think this is probably the closest to doing a big American blockbuster version of the kind of knockdown, drag out monster fights you'd see in the older Godzilla movies. Probably this or Pacific Rim. That would be the other one that's gotten the closest to it. So if there's anybody who liked the 2014 movie but just wished it had more Godzilla and more monster fights, this one should fix a lot of the problems you had. So there you go. There's my brief thoughts on Godzilla King of the Monsters. Depending on how Godzilla vs. Kong goes, this might be the last one of the series because I don't think this one did that great at the box office. At least not compared to the first one. But I guess we'll see how Godzilla vs. Kong does. Anyway, I'm going to get back to work on my next video, and who knows, maybe it's a full-length Godzilla review. It is. So until next time, everybody.